Welcome back to Darwin Models. So as you can see, I'm working on fairings in this video, as I said at the end of the last one I'll be doing. So at the moment everything's just mocked up loosely in place, just to see how it fits and how it's going to look. So you can see there, get an idea what it's going to look like when it's finished, and then you've got this front section where the screen attaches to that's going to sit up there like that. So nice looking bike. So if I just knock everything off carefully, because as I said it is very loosely fitting. So one of the things that I've been checking as well is to make sure that how the fairings mount, the magnet actually catches at the bottom, and it all lines up properly. So as you can see, the magnet is holding it. So that's where I'm at. So I'll just move that out of the way for a second and show you what I've been doing. So as I said, I've put the magnets in the bottom of the fairings. I've done both sides. So that's just a 2mm magnet, so 2mm hole that I drilled through, and then just fitted a magnet in it. I started as well fitting the bits to this one, which I'll show you what they are on the next one. So I've got that bit there and that bit there. So all I'm doing is, as the instructions say, I've got a bit there. Because this is one of the mounting points on the bike, I'm making sure I've got a decent glue bond on it. So any extra glue on that joint I'll clean up afterwards, but the important thing is it's a strong joint, because it's what hangs the fairings on the top part. And now I've got this piece here. So I've got a locator at the top there, and then a kind of locator there that fits down there in the corner. So it's a little bit fiddly, but that's how it sits. If I can actually get it to line up. So like that. So I'll put some glue on there. So as you can see, you've got to get it at exactly the right angle for that to actually sit properly, otherwise it doesn't want to sit and it looks like something's warped or twisted. So that's why you always test fit. And again, with the glue, I'm not overly fussed about it squeezing out, that's deliberate, so I can clean it up afterwards. I'd rather have a good joint. So that's that one done. So as I said, I've already done this one. It's still a little bit soft, so I'm not ready to sand that yet. So the other thing that I've started doing is on here where the rivets were moulded in, I've sanded those off and drilled them out. I've also been cleaning parts up because there's seam lines down the top of the air cover there, and then as you can see on this one there's a seam there. I've done this side, so I'll just show you how I'm approaching that. So I'm getting a medium grit sander. It's not a deep line or anything, so it doesn't need anything particularly coarse. Anything coarser than this is just going to create more work down the line. So you can see that top part's come out already, and then work down to that bottom part as well. So you can see there now, that step that you've got, just here where my nail is the bit that I need to work to get out. So just keep going over it, not too much pressure, and keep checking it after every couple of passes, just to make sure, because you don't want to keep sanding after you've finished, because then you're just removing unnecessary plastic and again create more work down the line. So you can see where the lines are from how the light catches it. Because the sanded part is rougher, it doesn't reflect the light the same, so keep working around until you're happy that you've got it all and there isn't anything else. And then once you're done with that one, you can move on to the next grit, which is a bit finer. Again, I'm just checking it as I'm going. And then next one again, which is even finer still. And you should see the plastic starting to come good now at this point. And then if you really want to, if you've got one, you can use a buffing pad. Which buffs it up nicely. Sorry, I think I went off camera a bit there, so I was concentrating on what I was doing. So, there you go. That's that seam gone. There's still a little bit there, which I can clean up. The other way of doing it, for things that are less visible, is just to get your knife and just carefully scrape your knife blade along the edge of it. So, like I said, there's a few areas that need clean up, so I've been going over them with the sander. And as I said as well, where I've got for example on this one, where I've got these bolt heads, for that I'm just getting my cutters, nipping it off, and then I've got a set of drill bits. So I'm using the finest one, which is a 0.3. And before I've cleaned that point up, I'm drilling the hole now, so I can get it centered and I know exactly where it is. Clean the drill bit off and go at it again. There we go, it's through. So now that I've got that, again, I'll go over that with the sanders. So I'll start off with that one. So you can just about see around the edge if I can catch the light on the camera. Still got a bit of a circle there, so just go over it again a little bit until that circle's disappeared, that ring around it has disappeared. And then once you're happy with that, then same as we did a minute ago, just work through the grades, and then I can buff it up. And then I'm left with that hole as a location point for where the rivet wants to go, but there's no no marks around it, no shadow or anything. So when I actually put either a photo etch head or a turn rivet in there, it'll look good. So a few of those to do. Got these joints to sand when they're dry. So once all that's done, I will come back and show you the next bit of progress. Right, I've got all the parts prepped now, so I'm ready to move over to the primer stage. So there's a few things different that I've done. So for starters, on the tail section where the number plate goes, it's quite a long bulky section which has that in it. So I've cut this middle section out and joined the bottom part straight to the top part to cut all of that away. So it would ordinarily sit so that bit there was touched up there, and then this bit with the number plate would be right down here. So it's a common aftermarket thing people do to put these what they call tail tidies on. So I thought I'd replicate that in scale form with the kit parts. The other thing I was going to show you was I've decided to replace the pegs with these resin versions. So I've shaped them, as you can see there. It's got a taper on the end so that it fits in where it needs to go, and they're out of this set. You get 3 different versions in there. So that's what I've done for that. Everything else is pretty much straightforward. I've sanded down these joints and everything like I said I would, so they're nice and smooth as well. In the same way that I did the other parts. So, and I've been going through drilling all the holes where the rivets were, moulded in rivets were. So you can probably see it better on there, which I was showing you before. So I've gone around all of the pieces where there's any visible rivets, drilled them out, ready. So yeah, I'll get these mounted on sticks or whatever and move over to the spray booth. Alright, I'm ready to start painting now. So the first thing I'm going to say is, depending how good a job you want to do, it might be worth getting a tack cloth and just going over all of the parts that you're ready to paint, and just making sure there's no bits or blemishes in it, bits of dust or anything like that, because you can anything that's in this level can go through. So as you can see there, there's just a bit of dirt there, so just going over it with a tack cloth will just remove those bits. So if you do that, make sure you get a low tack cloth, otherwise you'll end up getting sticky residue all over it and it'll be a worse state than when you started. So that's just another little tip. So for this painting section, I'm just going to concentrate on the fairing panels. I'm not going to do the rest of it, the seats and all of the extra bits. I'll paint those all off camera, otherwise we'll be here all day. So I'll just move these over to one side for a minute so I can get started. So I've got the airbrush loaded up already with the grey primer from Zero Paint as my go-to primer. So I'll start off doing one of the panels and seeing what it looks like, and then I'll shoot off, finish all the rest of them off camera, just to save some time on the video. So, as always, check the flow before I start. I'm going to go back to a few So that's the first panel done. As you saw, I just went over with a light coat to start with, so I'll get a couple more passes going the same way. So you can see that it's fairly smooth straight out of the airbrush. So, but we can improve on that a little bit. So, like I said, I'll go off, shoot the rest of the primer, and then come back to show you the next step. Okay, so once your primer coat's finished, so you should get a surface looking like this, which looks reasonably okay, feels smooth enough. But to go an extra step, I've got some 3M sanding sponges. So this is 4000 grit, which I just cut a piece off. So just get that in some water, which is off to the side, and then just very carefully, without, I mean, if you see there, that's pushing it down, so you can see no pressure at all, just to get the sander to do the work. And I don't think it shows up on camera, but it's much smoother finish now than it was before. If you've got any particularly big bits in it or problems that you want to work on more, you can use a higher grit. But if you listen, I don't know whether it comes up on sound, but you can hear the grit change when you get to a more coarse area. So you can tell by listening to it, if you care, if you've got some quiet, that the bits that need work and those that are okay. So it's just an extra step in the process for trying to get a perfect finish. So like I said when I was doing the tack cloth, it depends how much of a show finish you want, or how fussy you are about the sort of finish you're looking for. So normally I wouldn't always bother with these steps, because once it's got 2K clear on it and you polish that out anyway, it's I don't always see that there's any benefit or any point to this. But I'm just showing you on camera just so you're aware and you know that these steps available. So, and because I've done one piece, I've got to go and do them all now. Yeah, so you can see, maybe on camera, you can see it's got a little bit of orange peel effect in it, so just go over that again. And because we're using a fine grade, it shouldn't go through the primer layer, because I should have enough on there to be able to sand it out. So like I said, you could go to a bit of a coarser grade if you needed to, but you can see there it's starting to come out now, and then you can see it's more down there again. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to carry on working through those and get a nice perfectly smooth finish on all of the body panels, and then come back when that's done. Okay, so that's all these bits sanded through now, so as you can see that's nice and smooth, so ready for the first colour coat. So I'm going to go back over to the spray booth now and get set up for that. Okay, before I move on to the actual colour coat on these, I've just gone over the inside of them. So this one was painted with Zero Paints aluminium, and then these were just semi-gloss black on those two and there. There's different ways that you can do this. You can paint the outside of it and then use a sort of large flat-ish brush to brush the inside of these. You can paint the outside, mask them off, and then paint the inside, or you can do it the way I've done it, paint the inside first and then mask it off. And this is my preferred method because, one, you get a better finish using the airbrush than you do with a normal brush, and I like to do it first before doing the outside, because if you paint the outside, get it as you want it, mask it off, turn it over, paint the inside, there's a risk when you unmask it that there's some bleed through under the tape, which can ruin your paint job. So I prefer to do it first, because then if I get any bleed through, if I've not masked it properly, it's on the inside, not the outside. So it'll look better. So personal preference, but that's my way of doing it. Obviously I've done the inside of these semi-gloss black as well. So ready for the colour coat now. So give this a little bit of time for it to dry off before I mask it off, and then we'll get some colour down. Okay, so I'm ready for some colour to go down now. So the first bit that I'm going to do is this white silver for the base on the fairings. So I knock the fan on, and then I get one of the fairing pieces. As usual, it's in the airbrush, so I'm ready to start. So just check my spray. That's the first panel done. So as you can see, nice and smooth. So I'm not going to sand over that for two reasons. One, because it's smooth enough that it doesn't need it, and two, more importantly, if you sand a metallic colour, you'll lose the reflectiveness and the metallicness to it a bit. So I don't want to do that. So that's where I want it to be. So I'll move on, do the other panels, and then we'll be ready for the next stage. Okay, for the next step I'm going to be using this blue from the Spider-Man M1 colour scheme. So as you can see, I've got the parts masked up, so it's just the top of the fuel tank that I'm doing, and I'm also going to do the front of the nose cone, for whatever you call that part. Anyone that's familiar with this bike, with the actual kit, the decals are for an earlier version, and they go in a different way. On the newer version that Yamaha did, they've actually got these stripes down the side, which I prefer the look of. So I've masked it off to try and recreate that. So we'll see once it's all painted what it actually comes out like. So I'll just knock the fan on. So as usual, airbrush is loaded up, so check my paint flow. So I'll turn the pressure down a bit for this, because I don't want to get any bleed through under the tape. So I'm just going to build up the layers slowly and carefully with this. So that's the first coat on. As you can see, it's very light. So same again with this. And I'm also going, where possible, either straight along the tape or away from the tape, again to try and prevent any bleed under. So I'm going to keep going over these pieces and build the layers up, and then I'll show you when I've got a bit more progress. Okay, so that's had 4 or 5 coats on it now, so you can see the blue's really starting to come out now. And when I turned the pressure down, it actually got a bit of spit just there from the airbrush. So once it's dried a bit, I'm going to sand that out, and I'll respray that area and blend it in just to get rid of that, because although again once the clear coat's on I can polish it out, but because it's got that shadow on it, I think that will still be shown through. And there's a little bit down the side there as well. So because I want this to have that sort of show look to it, I need to pay attention to things like that. So I'll get those sorted out, give it another coat or two to blend it in, and then come back. Okay, so I've got something a little bit special planned for the colours on this to make it a little bit different. So as you can see, I've had a master line of silver just along the edge of the blue there. So I'm going to paint out different colours. So I'm going to start off with this white ground coat paint, which is loaded up in the airbrush ready. So I'll just knock the fan on, check my flow, and start spraying. So as I sprayed then, I was trying to keep it at 90 degrees to what I was spraying to try and prevent any bleed through underneath. So clean out the airbrush and I'll move on to the next little bit. Okay, so for the second part of that, now that I've painted that all white, I'm going to use this fluorescent yellow to create a stripe around it. So again, airbrush loaded up, so I'm ready to start spraying. Check my flow, and I'll turn the pressure down a little bit on this now, because I want to build up the layers a little bit lively compared to what I did the one. So one thing I found with this paint from using it previous is to know when to stop, because if you keep going it'll start just turning yellow and lose its fluorescentness a bit. So build up the layers lightly as I'm going and keep checking it. So maybe another coat or two on that, and then it'll be done. So I'll show you when that's finished. Okay, so while I was spraying the tank, I did these other bits. So I've done the two rear sections and done the side fairings as well. So some fairly nice crisp lines there. So there's a little bit of burring on the edge where I removed the tape, but that'll clean up okay. So move those over there. I'll unmask the tank. So as you can probably tell, I put the two holes together while I was spraying, because it means that I can make sure the colour matches properly, because otherwise you can end up with a mismatched colour, which I don't particularly want. So carefully peel this tape away. So as you remove any masking tape along a paint line, it's always worth pulling away from that paint line. If you pull against it like that, you risk damaging the paint if it's still soft, which this is. So nicely around the edge there, and that should allow me to separate these two pieces like that, and then I can carry on removing the rest of the tape. Always a fun part of the job, this. One doesn't want to come off. So this is the final piece. So again, same process again, pull away from the tape, and that's my paint line. So a little bit of fine sanding will get rid of that bit. So I'll go off do this one off camera because you don't need to see me unmasking all of it, and then I'll show you once it's cleaned up. As I'm cleaning these parts up, I thought I'd show you this other technique from one of my friends, Robert Riley, posted on his scaled lenses page a few weeks ago. So it's worth showing you this. If you get some masking tape and push it down on the edge, and when you remove it, you can see the line of paint coming away, and it just an alternative method to sanding that line away. So I'll just show you that. So you can see on there, that edge there. So when you lay the tape over it, when you remove it, it just tidies that edge up. So another little tip from a fellow modeller that I picked up recently. So thought I'd share that with you. So yeah, so there's the parts cleaned up. So so yeah, on to the next bit. So I'll go figure out what that is, and then come back in a bit. Okay, so I've done quite a bit of work off camera since the last segment. So I've put the Yamaha Decals on the side of this front part now, and put some monster decals on these back parts just to give it a bit of character. I've also, as you can see, carbon fibered the tops and bottoms of these, put Yamaha logos at the top, and I've done the R1M logos, which the kit decal, albeit a bit of a mess now, has the writing, the lettering in silver with a blue background, but I wanted it the other way around. So what I did was I laid some masking tape over that area, drew around it with a pen, and then transferred it to some cut it out with a knife after it was on masking tape, and then put that on the part that I wanted. So as you can see there, got a nice logo, and then when I removed it, I'm left with this this nice lettering. So next section, next bit, I'm just going to go and clear coat it. So move over to the spray booth, get the 2K mixed up, and start spraying. Okay, so I've got my beaker done now with my clearing coat in it. So 2-part clear coat, which is the actual clear, and the hardener, which is what makes up the 2 parts, and then there's the thinners just to make it go through the airbrush a bit better. So instructions are on the back of the bottle for the mixing ratio, which is what I followed. And as I said, I've put in this little tab, so quick mix up just to make sure it's all as it should be. And then I'm going to put my glove on just so that it protects my hand a bit, because I don't want it on my hand. So into the airbrush it goes, and then we'll start spraying. So I've turned the pressure up on this, so it's about 50 psi. Higher the better with this 2K. Get a better finish with it. So I'll turn the fan on and sort myself out, and we'll get spraying. So you can see on that first pass, it's a rough texture, but that's just the first tack coat that's gone down. So that's to be expected, that's normal. So I'm going to go through, get the others to all the same stage, and then come back in a second. So that's the second coat just gone down. So again, there's a little bit of texture in there, but this clear coat will self-level, but I'll give it another pass anyway. And there's a little mark in there as well, some dust that's got in there, but that will polish out again once it's dry. I can polish that out, that's not a problem. So again, as before, I'm going to go through, shoot all the other pieces, and then I'll come back in a second. Okay, so that's after 3 coats now, so you can see it's got a nice deep shine. So like I said, there's a little bit of dust in it that I need to sand out and polish out, which isn't a major problem. So that's where it's at. So once this is cured a little bit, I will move it back to the bench and then have a proper look at it. One thing that I will say before I close this section though is, as far as the airbrush, because obviously I've been using 2K and it does go very, very hard, which is the point of it, make sure you do a full strip down clean of your airbrush after using it, because the last thing you want to do is come back to it in the next paint session and find that there's remnants of 2K dried in there, because it will make a right mess and potentially wreck your airbrush. So just a tip on that. So like I said, move over to the other bench and have a proper look. So I've given the clear coat a little bit of time to level off and settle down. It's still a bit tacky, so I can't really handle it, but you can see on there that I've got a nice smooth finish across it. As it catches the light, you can see the reflection I've got, and there's barely any orange peel, if anything. And again on the front nose section, you can see the reflection that it's got on there. So it still needs flattening off and sanding. You can see on the edge there that just on this bottom edge there's obviously a deeper amount of clear coat on there as it's been stood up. So things like that need sanding out and levelling off. But overall, I'm happy with that. It's come out nicely. It really shows off that blue colour as well, which I love. So, and as I said on this other piece, there's a couple of bits in it that need sanding out as well. So that's not a problem. It'll sand out and polish up fine. So that's where I'm at with it. So I'm going to leave that on this video, and I'll come back in my next one. So it's either going to be finishing it all off, putting it all together, or I might do a polishing video. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to do that or not, so watch this space. But yeah, that's where I'm leaving it for now. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.